Oh, that's a very good question. Well, I've been told that we are moving towards the golden years for humanity.
Oh, that sounds great.
Yeah.
I've been told that they will share some of their technologies with us when we have open contact. They are very concerned with the pollution that we have on Earth itself, and they will give us technology or share technology with us to help clean up that pollution.
Oh, nice.
Particularly concerned about the Fukushima and the radiation that's still leaking from there. And again, they've already cleaned a lot of that up, but with open contact, we can do a lot more work with that. So they're prepared to do it. So really, it's down to ourselves to get to the point where we have that open contact. And like I said, there's plenty of people like myself that are working towards it.
Hey there, beautiful souls. It's your girl, Allie. We are back at it again for another episode of Living Life Consciously. We have a very special guest lined up for you today, and I'm stoked to get started. So without further ado, Justin, say hey.
Hey there, Cosmic Truth Seekers. I'm Justin. This is Living Life Consciously, where we explore the extraordinary, ride the waves of inspiration, and embark on an adventure of limitless curiosity together. Leslie?
Hello, I'm Leslie, your co-host, also known as Light Being Love, an eternal spiritual being having a temporary human experience. We are excited to have Kevin Briggs here with us today. Kevin, would you like to say hello to everyone?
Yes, I would. Hi, everybody, and thank you for inviting me on your show, on your YouTube channel. Without people like yourselves, I can't get my message out there. So I should be thanking you for inviting me on your show. Thank you very much.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You are most welcome, and we are super glad to have you here. Thank you so much for your time and your experiences that you're going to be sharing with our audience today. And speaking of, what if the experiences you've been told to fear were actually guiding you? In today's episode, we're sitting down with experiencer, author, and retired British policeman Kevin Briggs, someone whose life story challenges the way we think about reality, consciousness, and what might exist beyond this world. From a very young age, Kevin has had experiences that most people would struggle to understand. Moments where everyday life seemed to blend with something much deeper and more mysterious. In his book titled Spiritual Consciousness, A Personal Journey, he shares what it's been like growing up with these encounters, navigating family life, relationships, and loss, all while trying to make sense of experiences that don't quite fit into the normal world. And what makes his story so powerful is that it's not just about him. It's about anyone who has ever felt different or had an experience that they couldn't explain. Today, Kevin will be opening up about his lifelong contact with extraterrestrial beings, including a group he refers to as the Council of Eight, a higher dimensional collective focused on helping humanity evolve and expand our consciousness. We'll be exploring what consciousness really is, whether life continues beyond death, and why some people seem to have these experiences while others don't. And maybe most importantly, we'll talk about how to move from fear into understanding. Kevin, thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate your time.
No, thank you very much. And I think you touched on a topic to start with straight away with fear. And you mentioned how my journey started when I was very young. And I've never had any fear. And I've always been inquisitive. I was very inquisitive as a child, and I would ask questions. But as you say, a lot of my experiences, most people don't have. There are many that do now that I've come into contact with. But fear is a great inhibitor, and I never had that. So I'm fortunate in respect that, A, I've got two guides who are Orton D, who are Arcturian, who are guides and teachers, they tell me. Mm-hmm. They are from Andromeda. So they've guided me and taught me. And if I explain briefly, so your viewers have an understanding of where I've come from. Mm-hmm. When I was 3 years old, my mother engaged a photographer to take some photographs for the family album. I was lifted up onto the dining room table for a better elevation for the photographer. And from that elevation, I looked around as a 3-year-old and realized my conscious energy was in a physical body again. It was like there were two of me. There was the physical body you could touch and feel, but inside the body was this consciousness, this conscious energy that was looking out. It was like there was two of me. And it was like that for many, many years. And then I was always sensitive to the frequencies that surround us as well as a child. And when I was 8 years old, I was taking a bath at home. There was a change in the frequency within the bathroom. I looked to my right and two beings appeared. Frightened me to death at the time, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
They were both very attractive. Both had long, blonde, shoulder-length hair, deep blue eyes, and wearing a jumpsuit-type garment. As I say, I was terrified. And they were speaking about me, not to me. These are, I know who they are now. I'm still in contact with them to this day. Their names are Ort, O-R-T, and Dee, D-E-E. They, as I said, they are guides and teachers. And I remember Dee saying to Ort, "Is this the boy?" And Ort said, "Yes, this is the boy." And then she questioned him and said, "Are you sure?" He said, "Yes, I'm sure this is the boy." And then she said, "But look at him. He's small, he's uneducated, and he's frightened by our presence." And she was correct. I was terrified. He said, "Yes, this is the boy. I will guide him. I will teach him." There was some other conversation, and then they left. As I said, I was so frightened I didn't get out of the bath. The water went cold. I was shivering. My mother came in to see why I was still in the bathtub. I told her the two beings, and she said it was just my imagination. It wasn't. I'm still in contact with Orton D and others to this day, and I'm now 72. So, yeah, that's the beginning of my journey.
Was there a gap between that? Did you like shut it off and then pick it back up, or your entire since 8 you've been in contact?
My entire life is a journey of, if I need information, I will contact them. If they want me to do something, they will contact me. But within that journey, I've had shared experiences with them which educate me. And that's the key of my education is consciousness itself and understanding that and how conscious energy can be utilized as a conduit for communication, for travel, for healing, for education, for creation and co-creation. And I've had examples of all of those. I can explain how we as human beings can do that and utilize our natural human abilities, which we have lost over the years. I suspect it's been hidden from us, maybe to protect us, I don't know. But now we need to learn these abilities if we are going to expand into the cosmos and share an understanding of consciousness itself with other life forms, life beings. So we have to learn that. It's about our evolution. That's what they've taught me. And I put that into practice daily, as it were. It's a part of my life. It's a part of who I am.
Well, it's not lost on me that our show is called Living Life Consciously, and here you are sharing these messages with our audience. And on this show, we always strive to give our audience tools and tips and things that they could take into their actual lives, into their actual shadow work, into their actual practices so that they can, elevate where they're at. So feel free to teach us some things.
Yeah. And I was curious, if I can jump in, I was curious if you've ever had a near-death experience, as a young child prior to your experiences, and when did you stop fearing death? Was it because you were scared of the beings at 8? So at what point did you lose that fear of?
Yes, some great questions there. Yes. No, I've never had a near-death experience, but I can explain later how, if I do it in a chronological order, how I met my deceased family members with Art going back over 30 generations. And,
that's similar to a near-death experience.
But I've never, I suppose it depends on how you define a near-death experience. If you leave your physical body, leave the physical realm, travel to the higher levels of consciousness and meet with your deceased family, is that a near-death experience? I suspect not.
I guess it's an out-of-body experience.
It's an out-of-body experience, meeting those higher levels of consciousness. So I've never had a memory of a near-death experience. I don't particularly want one. So I
Right.
think there is a difference between the two. There's
Yeah.
similarities, but they are different. I've listened to a lot of near-death experiences. In fact, the film I mentioned earlier, Greater Reality, I think Dr. Eben Alexander is in there,
Oh,
and his near-death experiences are amazing because I think he was a brain surgeon. Don't quote me on that because I haven't seen the movie.
Neurosurgeon.
I've seen him talk about it, and so it's really my understanding. If we look at consciousness, I've come to the conclusion that consciousness is the true life of the universe.
yeah.
Within consciousness itself, it creates realities. So consciousness can have the experience of the physical and learn itself and expand. And we, in the physical realm, are part of that. And we can enjoy, once we understand that, and able to interact with consciousness itself, shared consciousness, collective consciousness, then it expands who we are as a species. It expands the enjoyment of life in the physical itself, because it's very difficult sometimes for people. Some people have very difficult lives. Perhaps it's their souls that are needing to learn more.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not certain on that, but I suspect so. So, we're going further forward now into many of my experiences. So if you go back to when I'm 14, I can share another experience I had then, which brings it up.
What about the fear? What about the loss of fear?
Okay, the loss of fear. Let me have a look. I think that was the only time I had fear, when I was 8 years old in the bathroom. After that, I had no more fear.
Okay.
What I did, if I didn't understand something, I would ask Orton D for the information.
You began to trust them. Once you had the trust.
Once I had the trust, and then most of it, as I can explain a bit later, was out of body education. So we traveled out of body with all the aspects that I've already described: the communication, the travel, the healing, the education, creation, and co-creation. So they did that on purpose, I'm sure, so I can explain it. So no, I didn't have any fear after the initial one.
Okay.
You were saying when you were 14. Sorry about that.
That's okay. No. It's a fast-flowing story. When I was 14, I lived in Wakefield in the UK, and I had a paper route. When I went out the house to go and collect my papers, a UFO would always appear above the home as I walked out. And then as a second UFO would appear and then follow me around the paper route until I'd finished. And then when I'd finished, one would go back in the direction it come from, and the other would just go straight up into space. And when that was happening, I was always aware of the frequencies that were surrounding me. I was aware that there was someone there watching me. So on one occasion, I plucked up courage and I said, "I know you're there. Can you show yourself?" And two small grey beings stepped out from behind the hedge, the wall. I wasn't frightened, Leslie. I said, "What do you want?" They said, "There's a group of people that would like to meet with you. Would you come with us?" And I said, "Well, no." I said, "I've got my paper round to finish, and then I've got to go to school, so I don't think I'll be able to go with you." They said, "Well, you've nearly finished your paper round. You can finish that, and then we'll have you back in time to go to school." So I agreed to go with them. I finished the paper round. I was transported to a large mothership, and I only know it was a large mothership because when we pulled into the hangar, there was all these different craft we see flying around our atmosphere. And the hangar was the size of 2 football stadiums, as far as I could see. So it was huge. And as we egressed the small craft that we were transported in, we were walking towards the main door to go into the main body of the craft, and there was a small grey there working on a craft, and he smiled and he waved at me. So I waved back to be polite, and I've met him since then. My wife's photographed him in a craft as well later on, but that's
really
another story.
Okay.
But anyway, I was led into this main centre of the craft down to an amphitheatre, and the amphitheatre was full of people. All different beings sat there in the amphitheatre, and at the front there was a stage, and there were 8 beings sat down there. And I was taken down to the front. I thought initially I was there as a human specimen to be paraded. I wasn't, I know that now. And I was introduced to 8 beings. The first 2 were Alton D, that I'd met when I was 8 years old in the bathroom. Next was Anna, she was a bluebird type being. Zark, he's a mathematician and engineer. He designs propulsion systems. He's small grey. Ra, he was the leader of the group. He was Anunnaki. His energy was tremendous. And then Tag, he was a tall grey. And he told me he was responsible for not only the security of this Council of 8, but this quadrant of the galaxy. So I thought that was quite interesting.
Wow.
And then Chica, he was a tall mantis being. Although they were sat down, I could tell he was way over 6 foot. And I was a bit perturbed by him because he was like he was a mantis being. I have mantis beings in my garden at home here, but they're very small.
Yeah.
Just like that, but over 6 feet tall. So I was a bit perturbed by him. And then the last one was Orla. She was a tall white. So I'm still in contact with all 8 to this day. And I realise now that the amphitheatre was like our parliament or our senate or our congress, where you have all the delegates in the main body of the room, as it were, the amphitheatre, and then the delegates at the front. And that's what it was. And I was there it was a meet and greet. I was there to meet the Council of 8. And I was introduced to them all. And after the introduction, I was taken back. I was dropped off around the corner from where I lived. And I was away for about 20, 25 minutes. And I got to school on time. So that was when I was 14. I'd been introduced to these 8 beings. And again, I'm still in contact with all 8 to this day.
Wow. I think I would have immediately jumped on to the opportunity of going with them versus going to school. I'd be like, yeah, let's go.
I'm not quite sure why I wanted to go. I enjoyed school, actually, as a child. I enjoyed going. I enjoyed the social side of it. I enjoyed interacting with my friends there. And I enjoyed learning. I mean, I wasn't particularly academic, shall we say, but I did enjoy school. So
okay. And now Ra, you said Ra,
like the Ra,
like the Ra from ancient Egypt, Ra,
like that one.
Ra. He spells his name R-A-H.
Oh,
and I asked him if he was the god Ra, R-A, in ancient Egyptian times. He said no, he wasn't a god. He said he was alive in our ancient Egyptian times, but he is not the god Ra that you referred to. Now, my understanding is because he was Anunnaki and he was alive in those times, the society and the people who led those societies gave him the title of Ra, the god. But he tells me he's not. So I suspect they thought he was. I mean, if you turn up with all the technology that they had now, let alone 5,000 years ago, people then would think he was a god. But he was adamant that he's not a god. He's a 9th dimensional being. He doesn't have a physical now unless he chooses to have the physical. And he can enter, move backwards and forward between the dimensions.
Wow. Okay.
What did you say the mantis's name was?
She loves mantises.
Chica?
Chica. C-H-E-E-K-A. Chica.
Chica.
He's right. I have an obsession with them. I don't really know why. I don't really know where it comes from. When I was a kid, I was fascinated with insects. I used to have like a praying mantis type of bug. I think they called it katydid. I don't even know what it was, but I had it in my room, like living on my curtain. I would bring in leaves and like feed it and stuff. And like, I've just always been fascinated with them. And then when I started studying aliens and learning that like there are 6 foot tall mantises that are super telepathic. And like, if they touch you with their little antennae, they could read you in your past like 30 lives or whatever. I'm just so fascinated with them. So what did Chica have anything to say? Like, I'm curious what Chica's message or like interaction with you was like.
I hadn't have a great deal of interaction with Chica. I know that he's very well respected. They're an ancient species and they're a very wise species. My main contact has been with Alton D. Zart, to some degree, he's a mathematician and the engineer. Orla, briefly, it's really been Orton D and Zark, really, the three main ones. But the rest of them introduced themselves through me as well, through a channel to a group of friends of mine, Kathleen Marden, Denise Stoner, Dr. Melanie Barton, and my wife. And that's another story. But we met at my home once a month on a Saturday over a 2-year period. And I channeled the different members of the Council of Eight. But it was mainly, again, Ort. But I did channel all 8 as an introduction. And I still channel Ort to this day. In fact, I've just done a recent channel. And I channeled Ort and Ra, and Edgar Mitchell, he came through as well, and then an indigenous ancestral Indian came through and spoke.
Oh,
all part of the journey in relation to the evolution of humanity, really. They're all assisting with that evolution, using my natural psychic abilities to help facilitate that. So, yeah.
Are those available online for us to watch?
There's one I did a couple of years ago, which is on the Exo Conscious community. If you go to exoconscioushumans.com, they have a YouTube channel. You can see the one I did a couple of years ago, and the one I did a week or so ago. I don't think that's been uploaded yet, but it will be uploaded. And as I say, you've got those people that channeled through me with interesting information in relation to the reveal itself and the evolution of humanity. So interesting, because I have developed these natural human abilities, then they are using me as a facilitator to get information out there. So, yeah.
So what was their message most recently as of a week ago? What do they have to say? Because, I mean, the world is in a crazy state of mind right about now. So, we need all the help we can get. So what are they saying? What's the message?
Well, that's what they're saying, really.
They're agreeing with me.
Yeah, they're agreeing with you. They're agreeing with you. But there are many levels of consciousness that are assisting humanity so that we can evolve to those higher levels of consciousness. They said we've been in this position before, and we've destroyed our societies. They don't want us to do that this time. They will help and assist us, and that's what they're doing. There are many that they are speaking with, but my particular story focuses on the reveal itself. When we have the physical reveal, that will expand our collective consciousness.
Physical reveal, you say?
Is that like disclosure?
Like open contact?
Well, there will be open contact. That's the idea. That's what I'm working towards now with many others. The exo-conscious community have already drafted a planetary constitution, which I have a copy here.
What?
I love that.
And you can see that, you can read that on the Exo-Conscious Humans website.
Wow.
And then and we have a mandated protocol to receive our ET Star Families ambassadors. This was requested through me, that's what they want, to receive them for open contact.
Okay.
I was asked quite a few years ago to contact the United Nations in relation to a mandated protocol to see if we had one to receive our star families. I contacted the office of Nicholas Hedman, and they did respond. They said, no, we don't have a protocol to receive advanced extraterrestrials, that was his words, if they wish to communicate with us. So I did ask then, how would we implement such a protocol? And they said there would have to be a member propose it, and then it will be voted on. And nothing happened about that. So, and then they asked me again a bit later on to contact the UN in relation to this mandated protocol. I contacted Nicholas Hedman's office again, and I contacted Dr. DePippo in the Washington, D.C. office. And on that occasion, they gave me a specific time and date and location of where they wanted to meet. And I didn't get a response at that time. But what was interesting with that particular communication, I was contacted by Terry Lovelace. He's a lifelong experiencer too. He's a retired.
I recognize that name. Mhm.
He's a retired assistant district attorney for 2 jurisdictions. He contacted me and said, Kevin, I've been given exactly the same information that you've been given. I said,
Wow.
well, I've contacted Nicholas Hedman's office in Vienna, and I've contacted Dr. DiPippo in Washington, D.C. And he said, well, Kevin, I know Dr. DiPippo in Washington. I will contact him.
Oh,
And I will support the information that you've been given because I've been given it too. And I
Wow.
find there's always 2 areas of the information where it comes through. I mean, neither of us received a response. So Terry went through the back channels of government that he knows, and in his words, he got the pushback. So that's what the Council of 8 are wanting. That's what they're requesting. That's what I'm working towards. And now the exo-conscious community have their own mandated protocol to receive our ET Star Families ambassadors requested by the Council of 8. So we have it. And again, you can read that copy on the Exo Conscious Community website. So clearly they are reaching out. They've reached out in the past. And I know some of our governments now, or the government departments, are open to contact. They're having their own Congress hearings and things on committees. So, and there are others working towards this. Chris Bledsoe, he's very prominent within the government arena at the moment, and many others. So, you know, I'm just a small piece of the jigsaw, and I see that, but clearly an integral piece because I see the journey moving forward quite quickly now in relation to, and I think what will happen when we have a global sightings over our major cities, which is, I think, how it will happen. And I only say this because I have a friend of mine, in fact, he's here at the moment. He's a retired detective from the UK. He's on vacation with us at the moment. I think he's gone to Disney today. Anyway, and he's always been a skeptic, never believed in ETs or UFOs. And a couple of years ago now it was, we were sat by my pool. They'd been out for the day, come back, and I said to him, would you like a beer? A silly question for a retired detective. He said yes. So I went inside to get a couple of beers. As I reached into the refrigerator, I said to Orton D in the Council of 8, now will be a good time to show my friend a craft. I took the beers out, I sat down, and a craft appeared immediately at the back of our house.
Look at you!
Below the tree line, about 500 feet. And
wow.
It shot in all these unusual characteristic moves that the craft do. So it's no doubt it was a craft. And then it moved, and then it was shot straight up into space. Well, he saw it. He was gobsmacked. It changed the whole reality. He now does his own research. He talks about the extraterrestrials. He talks about the UFOs. So it changed his collective consciousness just by seeing the craft. And I think that's what will happen globally if we get them over Moscow, London, Paris, Rome, New York, Washington.
Like simultaneously.
You cannot deny that they are here then. Right. Our government's always saying, they are saying now that they are here.
Yeah.
They refer to them as non-human intelligences. We've got them talking about the craft. But we need to have an understanding. My role is really one of understanding consciousness itself, not the nuts and bolts side of it. So yeah, but it's all linked together because I was told that the citizens of they told me that they'd reached out to our governments in the past and they weren't interested in communicating with them. So now they are going through the citizens of Earth, and the request will come from the citizens of Earth for the reveal globally. And that's what there are many different groups. In fact, now we have a Citizens for Disclosure. I think that's led by
Danny Sheehan.
So we now have a Citizens for Disclosure.
Yeah, New Paradigm Institute.
A mandated protocol. We now have a planetary constitution. We, the citizens of Earth, are moving towards that. And I'm helping and assisting with the spiritual side of who we are, as you are with your podcast and everything. There are many involved in this. No one person is important. We are, it's collective humanity that's expanding our own consciousness by teaching ourselves. We are educating ourselves through the people who are speaking out.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, all of us.
Right?
Yeah,
Exactly.
we're all learning and expanding. Yeah, I think I totally agree with this mass sightings. That would light, within people, and hopefully they wouldn't be scared. But I think, we would have been long ago, something would have happened to us if anything was like, I can't say the word.
Negative or
Malicious.
Well, I'm trying to think of malevolent. I can't say it. Malevolent.
Leslie, I'm glad you can't say that word because neither can I. I always say the bad one because I can say the bad one. I can't say that word.
It's funny. I can say benevolent. That one's easy, but it's exactly
I can say
same
benevolent, but I never say the other one. Yeah, I don't know.
English is hard sometimes.
Yeah.
I'll be honest. I think more and more people are seeing craft every day, over cities, and especially over the last week and a half. There's been so many meteorites or meteors that have been seen in the sky. Sorry if I just hit the microphone.
There has.
Yeah, to me, it feels like that there is something, in the works or something going on. And just last night, this is what I didn't get to tell you when we were talking to Denise. Just last night on the way home from work, I actually saw a green meteor myself.
Did you really?
Yeah, I mean it was big. It was huge, going really fast, really bright, and it did what most meteors do. It shined green real bright, and then it exploded. But yeah, it was pretty cool. So over the past couple weeks, I've been seeing on X people posting videos of meteors, and last night I actually saw one.
Okay. Well, do you think it's really we are now looking up into the skies? We are now talking about the ETs. We're talking about UFOs. It's not taboo anymore.
Some of them have had the big boom from entering. So there's been some of that. I think at least maybe one, maybe two places. But
I've heard of that. Yes, with this big boom thing that they don't know what's going on really, but.
Here in the U.S. tonight, and to this incredible sight seen in several states, a 7-ton meteor shooting across the sky. The sonic boom heard over multiple states. The meteor 6 feet in diameter, the ground shaking. Here's Rhiannon Alley tonight.
Tonight, NASA says this bright red fireball streaking through the sky, moving at 40,000 miles per hour and seen from at least 10 states, is a rare daylight meteor crashing into Earth.
Oh, what the was that?
The asteroid bursting through the Earth's atmosphere, sending loud sonic booms, rattling homes from Ohio to Kentucky. The blast so powerful it shook the ground, the rumbling registering on a seismograph.
It was just like a boom, like that.
The meteor seen just before 9 a.m. for barely 5 seconds, traveling more than 34 miles in the upper atmosphere before breaking apart above Medina, Ohio, and seen across the Northeast.
Anybody see or hear what blew up? Definitely too big for fireworks. We felt a shockwave. We're not sure what it is, but it was big.
NASA says the meteor, nearly 6 feet in diameter, weighing roughly 7 tons, lit up the sky. It was even spotted by a NOAA satellite in space, unleashing the same amount of energy as 250 tons of TNT.
This thing just broke apart violently, scattered fragments everywhere. And this explosion generated a shock wave or a pressure wave that traveled to the ground. And that's the explosions people saw.
Aisha Jones lives in Maple Heights outside Cleveland and had just put her small children down for a nap when she says her house shook.
I immediately thought that somebody ran into my house or something big had hit the house.
David, NASA says what makes this so uncommon is that it went over a populated area. And while 40,000 miles per hour is really fast for a human, it's actually slow for a meteor. David?
Yeah, it's all perspective. Imagine being one of those drivers today who we heard in that piece, Rhiannon. Thank you.
Yeah, certainly people are looking. And the CE5 groups. I know I was speaking with Costa McCree's quite a few months ago now, but he was telling me that he now has over 1 million members in the different groups who are reaching out using the CE5 protocols to reach out to the star family.
There's more and more people doing that for sure. Even outside of that, because we kind of did it outside of that to an extent. We started out using his protocol.
We did it every weekend online for 2 years straight.
Yeah, really? Wow.
Yeah. We did.
Yeah, I get invited to a friend of mine and in Central Florida, and his sightings are tremendous. He's had the inverted triangle turn up.
Wow.
I think that's a huge mothership. I think it's there. I've channeled his property, and time before, he said, "Oh, Kevin, come in." He says, "You're the first here. Go inside and get yourself a drink." So I went inside. I reached into the refrigerator to get a drink, and this female voice said, "Is that Kevin?" Quite clearly from the living room area. And I said, "Yeah, who's that?" And I walked into the living room. There was nobody there. Oh. And then I went to the bathroom, and the lights started flickering like this. Ooh. I believe it was D. But we've used the radios at that C5 and these walkie-talkies. And Dr. Melinda and myself had a conversation with D over the radios. And she actually gave us a verbal. Dr. Melinda said, "Can you give us a verbal over the radio rather than just the squeaks and the squawks?" And she said, "Hello."
Wow.
So we heard it verbally. But then we found out since then the squeaks and the squawks have encoded binary information. And that coded binary information can be decoded into letters, and there are messages in there. So people are doing that now. So they're reaching out with all these different modalities of contact. We're having to discover them, to explore them. I mean, a friend of mine that does them, she has an app that identifies the binary code. Then she's got another app that changes the binary codes into letters, and she obviously reads the messages. So we are communicating, and we've got the telepathic communication from those that are able to do that. And I mean, it's you can't. It's like a snowball. In fact, Costa McCree says that it's like a snowball rolling down a mountain. You can't stop it now.
Right.
Yeah. And then once your mind is opened, at least in my experience, and I feel like in a lot of people, in this area, once that opens, you don't go backwards. You only go forwards, and you want to learn, and, you want to connect and all the things. So.
Yeah, so my friend's a prime example of that, So he always, being a detective, he said, "Kevin, I want the evidence. Show me the evidence. If I have some evidence, then I'll believe." Well, now he saw the evidence and he believes. So
wow. I've been wanting to ask you, because we're talking about, open contact and how these things are going to start happening. What are your thoughts about the rumor about 2027 being a big year? We were just talking about that with Denise on the last call that we did about 2027. There has been a lot of people talking about how something's coming, something big is going to happen. 2027 is the rumor. Have you heard it? And if so, what are your thoughts?
Yes, I haven't been given a specific date. I was given a specific date, which I mentioned earlier, which I contacted the UN office in Vienna and the UN office in Washington, D.C., with no response. But no, I haven't been given a specific date again. But I know we've got other beings now. I don't know if you're aware of the Penty. The Penty, I reached out to the Penty, having watched a podcast with Susan Walker, and I'd never heard of this group called the Penty. So I thought, I wonder if I can reach out to them. So I reached out and I saw two Penty, and I had a conversation with them telepathically. And then I went onto Sue Walker's website, and she's got drawings of the different Penty that she communicates with. And the
I've
first
never heard of that.
No, I hadn't. You spell it P, capital P, apostrophe N-T-I. I'll look up Susan Walker or Kevin Estrala. I was able to speak with them, and then I was able to reach out to them again, had a conversation with them. And then recently they reached out to me to tell me they are supporting the reveal globally. So we've now got another species supporting the reveal globally of our extraterrestrial star formers. And then I think Bashar through Darrell Anker, he's given a date of 2026 for the reveal, and the Sasani, I understand, are supporting the reveal as well. So we're now getting other levels of consciousness beings supporting the reveal globally for humanity. So we are doing that. The government isn't doing it. We are doing it. I know Chris Bledsoe has done a huge amount of work with the government. With his contacts within the government. So
and he's saying Easter. of this year.
I think he does say Easter, doesn't he?
Yeah.
But then he
Or
kind of changed that.
Easter
'cause
as
they're
like
not
the
100%.
start of something.
No,
Okay.
but
Right.
I would suggest it's already started. You know,
Yeah, I think so too.
there are many that have direct contact because of our technologies and the internet. We're all sharing the information,
Yeah.
and I think it's. And once you realise that the different levels of consciousness are supporting it, once you realise our indigenous ancestors are supporting the reveal, they've told me that they have given the ancestral ancestors, ancient ancestral ancestors, have given permission for our star families to land their craft on their sacred land. They've given it.
Okay.
Okay, so we now have that as well. I know all land is sacred, but I've been to a couple of CE5s that are on the sacred land, and I'm sure there are portals above those specific locations as well. So we unbeknown, shall we say, once you join the dots together, we are doing this ourselves.
Yeah.
We'll see where it takes us. And like I said, there are many working towards it, many that I'm probably not aware of. But I think you mentioned Denise Stoner and Kathleen Marden.
Yeah.
If you're interested in, I have a copy of Kathleen Marden's latest book here, which is Forbidden Knowledge by Kathleen Marden. And if I tell you a quick story, it might be interesting to your readers if they want to buy this book.
Sure.
Because I was given information one day telepathically to go down to a MUFON meeting in Orlando. And then I said I'm about 40 minutes west of Orlando. So I'm going down there, and I said, as I'm driving down, I said to Ort, I said, I don't know why I've got to go to this meeting. But, if I'm going down there, I'd like to meet someone that will help me on my journey. Anyway, I got down there. I was very impressed. It was very busy. A lot of professional people there, a lot of doctors, lawyers, engineers, scientists even. I was very impressed. And I listened to some lectures in the morning. Kathleen Marden was one of the lectures. I can't remember this morning or the afternoon. Then it came to lunchtime, and I went to get a sandwich. I went to the cafeteria in the hotel. It was absolutely packed. I bought a sandwich. There was nowhere to sit. So I looked around and I saw one vacant seat, and there were two ladies sat on this table. So I walked over with my sandwich, and I said, do you mind if I sit down and eat my sandwich? No, sit down. And I sat down. They were still chattering away. And then I finished my sandwich, and then they brought me into the conversation. One of those ladies was Dr. Melanie Barton. She was a person I was there to meet. And then from there, I met Denise Stoner. I went to an experiences meeting. I'd never met other people. I had contact with extraterrestrial star families, so that was interesting. And then Melanie Barton arranged a luncheon with Kathleen Marden, Denise Stoner, and myself, and we went locally. And after the luncheon, Kathleen Marden invited us back to her home. Coincidentally, she only lives 10 minutes from where I live. So we went back to her home, and then I'm relaying the information that I've been given by our star families. And Denise says, Kevin, do you realise what you're doing? I said, no, what am I doing? She said, you're channeling information. I said, I wasn't aware. What I was doing, I was repeating the information they'd given me. But it's quite interesting. I wasn't accessing my own memory. The information was over here. I was accessing the information here and relaying it so I suspect I was channeling without knowing it. So because of that,
that's amazing.
We decided to meet at my home on a Saturday. On the first occasion, we were all sat there with my wife as well. And Melanie did a meditation, and she said, let's see if we can make contact with the extraterrestrials. So she did the meditation. It's not finished. Then she went around the room. She said, did anybody get any contact? And Denise said no. Kathleen said no. She said, what about you, Kevin? I said, no, I didn't get any contact. No, nothing at all. She said, are you sure? I said, well, I didn't get any information, but there's a male stood in front of me. I said, I can feel his frequency. So she said, who is it? I said, I don't know. She said, well, ask him. So I asked. And it was Ort. And he spoke through me for 40 minutes to the group.
Wow.
That was the first time I channeled. And after that, we met once a month on a Saturday at my home and channeled the information. The information was transcribed. My wife did a couple. Kathleen Madden did most of it. And it's been published in this book, which is Forbidden Knowledge by Kathleen Madden. So if you're interested in what was discussed, we asked 12 questions each month, and they answered the questions. So they're in there. There's some interesting reading. I know when I read it, I think, wow, did I say that? on a side note, this is interesting from the spiritual side of things and how we're contacted through, but I suppose the higher levels of consciousness. When Kathleen wrote about it in this book, she put my picture in, and there's my picture in her book. Look.
Nice.
Wow. Yeah.
But it's on page 111. I'm very often contacted at 111 AM, 222 AM, 333 AM, 444 AM. But then Kathleen Madden wrote another book called Extraterrestrial Contact, which is what to do when you've been abducted. She had an issue with a negative energy attaching itself to her. So she contacted me and asked me if the Council of Eight could remove the entity. I asked, she tried for weeks to get rid of this entity. I asked and they removed it immediately. And she writes about it in this book. And it's on page 222. So again,
that's neat.
Synchronicity. And I was woken up at 4:44 AM one morning and given a message for a young experiencer. They call her Chloe Chavigny. She's French-Canadian from Canada. She contacted me a while ago and wanted to be interviewed for one of her podcasts. So I spoke to her. Anyway, they woke me up at 4:44 AM, gave me this message for Chloe. I contacted her and said, I've been giving you a message by the Council of Eight. This is the message. And I said, incidentally, I said, they woke me up at 4:44 AM, because they always look at the clock when they wake me up, and gave me the information. And she said to me, she's 24, is Chloe. She said to me, Kevin, 444 is a very important number to me. She says, I have it tattooed on my body.
Oh, wow.
I'm thinking, you can't make this stuff up, can you?
No.
We say that to each other all the time.
Because
I have a
see
question.
numbers all the time.
Yeah. We call them angel numbers.
Yeah,
but it's also synchronicity, and it's basically a way to communicate as well, I feel, to the other world. But I have been thinking, you did bring up negative entities. So I am curious on your thoughts of actual maybe negative ET being here on Earth and part of all of the really negative things that are going on in the world today, and maybe somewhat, hopefully falling out of control, but what some would think are controlling in the so I don't want to say that. I feel like I have to censor myself, but I guess, but and those powers that be, I guess, negative.
Yes. I've asked about the negative entities. There are different levels of these negative entities. There's those negative entities that don't have a physical body, who want to attach themselves to people, which is what happened with Kathleen Madden. This negative entity attached itself and fed off energy, which was debilitating to her. So we were able, Council 8 were able to move that. But then you've got negative ETs. You've got some negative reptilians, and they're not all negative. There's some good reptilians who don't like the human race, who are ambivalent to them. They don't like them at all. In fact, I'll tell you a quick story when I finish this about a reptilian. I've only met one. Let me tell you the story first, quickly. I'm traveling out the body, which I do naturally. I've done it since I've been a child. I'm just going out through the solar system because I like to look at the planets and the rings of the planets, whatever. It's all very interesting. And I'm coming back, and I bilocate, I materialize on a craft cockpit, and there are two greys flying this small craft. They're actually transporting minerals from the Earth to the moon.
Oh.
And they look round at me and say telepathically to one another, what's he doing here? So I realized I shouldn't be there, and I left. I go back to my home. I see myself asleep. I go back into my body. I wake up, and there's a tall grey stood there, and he warns me not to interfere. I shouldn't be there. So, and then he left. And then a reptilian appeared. I'd never seen one before. I've heard of them. I'd never seen one. And he didn't like the human race. He was ambivalent towards us. He's a negative ET, or he was a particular one. And he was there because he was curious how a mere human can bilocate, how a mere human can understand telepathic communication. And he just wanted to know how and why. So he came to see me, and he wanted to know, what was it? There's another thing he wanted to know, so I can't remember what it was now, but there were three things he wanted to know about the abilities of myself traveling out of body. That was it, yeah. Okay. So that was so there are negative ETs. There are those that don't want us to evolve, but I'm also aware that there's a balance within consciousness itself. When that balance is out of balance, it tips one way towards the negative evil side, then we have the wars, we have the conflict, and we have to get that consciousness back in balance so we can create and co-create the reality that we desire for our children, for our future generations. We within the exo-conscious community have an understanding of how to do that. We've been given the information. So we are collectively co-creating with the Council of Eight a reality which will include the reveal globally, using consciousness itself. And I was given information regarding the void of consciousness. When I was about 17 or 18, I was taken to the void of consciousness with Ort out of body. I wasn't aware at the time why he was showing me that.
Okay.
A few years ago, he gave me an equation for calculating the void of consciousness, and he explained to me that all timelines, past, present, and future timelines, are created or co-created from that void of consciousness. That equation with the explanation is in Ray Hernandez's book, A Greater Reality. Now, they gave us that information, I'm sure, so that we had an understanding of the co-creation and creation side of consciousness itself. So now we have that knowledge and we share that knowledge. We're raising the collective consciousness of humanity with the ability to co-create with our star families. That's the key. That's where we are at. And again, people like yourselves are sharing this information. That's very important for humanity, very important for that collective consciousness. Yeah.
Yay. I've been dying to ask, if you, I'm thinking about Ort and Dee, and I'm wondering, for somebody in the audience watching this who wants to assist humanity's evolution, who wants to help kind of act as a catalyst to speed this shit up a little bit, what advice would you give to people who want to aid in this ascension process?
Okay, well, share the information you have. Talk to your family and friends about the ETs, about the contact. I mentioned this book, A Greater Reality. There are 6 volumes. This is volume 5. It's quite a thick book. And all 6 volumes can be downloaded for free as a PDF file at agreaterreality.com. So it's agreaterreality.com. Download all 6 volumes. I'm not going to read all 6, but I bought volume 5 because I was asked to be a contributing author, and I bought it to see how it read when it reads quite well. So, but Melanie Barton's got a chapter in there. There's Susan Manwich from the Exo Conscious community. She's got a chapter in there. The other experiences. So if you just download that one volume and share it with others, because it's free, and like they said to me earlier, it's the citizens of Earth. We have to talk about it. We have to bring it into our collective consciousness. And we do that by talking about it, by sharing it with family and friends. Even if you don't fully understand it, the fact that you are talking about it, it brings it into that collective.
Right. Yes.
And I'm always aware that they give us information. They also gave me an equation for calculating the frequency of consciousness in each dimension, because we don't fully understand it. If you bring consciousness into the dimensions with the calculations and an equation, then you understand it. And that equation was published in this book again, by Ray Hernandez. So we've now got information coming through from the star families, what they are requesting. We've got the mandated protocol, the planetary constitution. And we're quite clearly, we are working towards this ourselves. And our governments are doing it as well to their best of their ability. But there'll be those negative people within the governments that don't want it. There's always those that don't want it. Always those that are self-serving and not serving humanity.
Right.
Well, we need to self-serve ourselves as humanity. And so we can evolve, as I said. It's important for our children, our future generations. And,
Sure.
and we are being helped with this. But they've told me they won't do it for us. We have to do it ourselves. So, yeah.
I feel like this is a good time to ask you a question that I love to ask everybody, and we literally ask everybody the same question. But what is your greatest hope for the future of humanity?
Oh, that's a very good question. Well, I've been told that we are moving towards the golden years for humanity.
Oh, that sounds great.
Yeah.
I've been told that they will share some of their technologies with us when we have open contact. They are very concerned with the pollution that we have on Earth itself, and they will give us technology or share technology with us to help clean up that pollution.
Oh, nice.
Particularly concerned about the Fukushima and the radiation that's still leaking from there. And again, they've already cleaned a lot of that up, but with open contact, we can do a lot more work with that. So they're prepared to do it. So really, it's down to ourselves to get to the point where we have that open contact. And like I said, there's plenty of people like myself that are working towards it. All the experiences, the exo-conscious community had a meeting today with them. We meet once a week. I think there was 18 or 20 people in the meeting today. All experiences, all have got some amazing contact. Many are leading scientists, which is we're bridging the gap between science, spirituality, and extraterrestrials. And we need to do that so that we understand. I can communicate with our star families at their level of consciousness. I can travel with them at their level of consciousness. I can create and co-create with them at their level of consciousness. Why is that? Because they've educated me in how to do it. And I'm no different from anybody here or anybody watching.
Right.
We can all learn. You can't fly a jumbo jet without having lessons. So I've had lessons from R&D in how to travel out of body and have an understanding of consciousness.
Yeah.
I share that with others, and we can all share that. We all have our understanding of consciousness. I think Ali mentioned the insects. Well, I communicate with the insects because once you realize that, I've got a quick story I'll tell. It's more a humanitarian story, really. It involves.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Go for it.
It involves my brother. He's a retired aircraft engineer. Worked in the UK. Well, worked all over the globe.
That's what I am.
Well, you're not an engineer. You're a mechanic.
Well, I'm a mechanic.
Oh, okay. Well,
the gray alien friend made me think of Justin. I didn't want to interrupt though, but way earlier you were talking about the gray that was working on the spaceship.
Oh, you
thought of
that made me think of Justin for some reason.
Well, it's interesting you mention that because he's a pilot, but he also maintains his own craft. So he has a dual purpose, and his name is Tia. And I forgot what I was saying. Oh, about my brother.
Yeah, sorry.
Brother, he retired from the UK, moved down to Spain. And I speak to him most days by FaceTime or whatever. And I was speaking to him on this occasion. He said, Kevin, he'd been there for 3 years. He said, you should see the butterflies down here. They're huge. I mean, we have butterflies in the UK.
I have a butterfly shirt on.
There we are. He said, they were as big as your hand. I said, oh, well, why don't you ask them to come and land on you? I said, being an engineer. He said, oh, they won't do that. And he's got, at that time, he had a balcony that overlooked the Mediterranean from an elevated position halfway up a hill. And I said, why don't you? I said, well, indulge me. I said, go outside, and when you see a butterfly come past, hold your hand out and ask it to come and land on your fingers. But I said, you'll need a reason. And the reason is you want to look at the beautiful colours of it on its wings. So he indulged me, went outside, this butterfly came flying past, and it held out his hand. He asked it to come along on his hand so he could, with the reason, it flew out of sight, it kept going. It turned around, it came back, and it landed on his fingers.
Wow.
This is an example of using consciousness for communication, not only with the extraterrestrial, but with the insect realms. And I said, right, now what you need to do, you need to ask it to fly away and come back with a friend. But you need a reason. I said, the reason is you want to compare the beautiful colours on its wings. So it took off, it flew out of sight, it came back, it landed on his fingers, and the second one landed on his forehead.
Wow.
That day, he had 12 separate landings and butterflies on him. The following day, he said to his wife, Lorraine, I think he was showing off, he said, Lorraine, come outside, we'll ask the butterflies to come and land on you. So he used the same process. And I've got photographs of, there's one on her glasses, there's, I think, 2 or 3 on her arm. She's reading a book, there's one landed on the book. Once you realise how we are connected through consciousness itself, then we can communicate not only with the plants, the trees, the animals, the insects, but the extraterrestrial families, and even higher with the ascended masters, the angelic, with the divine itself. So we have those abilities because we are part of the universal consciousness itself.
Right.
Yes.
It makes me think of a story, an experience that we all had together. Last year, we went to this spiritual summer camp retreat in the Ozark Mountains in Arkansas. And we were there, and Allie, Leslie, and I, and we were in this river doing a water meditation with approximately a group of 20 people. And my dad had recently passed away at that point, and we took dragonflies as a sign of him. And when we were in the water doing the water meditation, there was a swarm of dragonflies that flew over us, and they all started landing on us. And
I would say that is confirmation itself.
Right.
And you know that my wife's, my brother's wife died a year or 18 months after that episode with the butterflies. And then he went back to Scotland to scatter ashes. I think it was in winter time. And while he was scattering the ashes, he saw a butterfly.
Wow.
And he asked the butterfly to come and land on it. And he was with one of his sons, and the butterfly landed on his son. I believe that was his wife manifesting as a butterfly, part of that communication.
I totally think that happens.
I have a story with dragonflies. I went out, I had some netting covering some tomatoes, and in there was a small dragonfly, beautiful colours, and it was stuck in the netting. I tried to get it out, and I couldn't release it. So I went inside, got some scissors, and I snipped around it gently, not to damage its wings or whatever. And I managed to cut the last one, and it flew off. It just disappeared. I thought, that's good. Then I went out later on in the afternoon with my 2 dogs, and I'm sat on the front porch, and this same size dragonfly, same colour, came flying around my legs, went through my legs, and then it came to look at me. So I held my hand out and see if it would come and land on it. And it was about an inch away, and it wouldn't land on my fingers. So it left. But then I went out later on in the day, and the same thing that happened to you, the dragonflies that were feeding on the plants and things there, with all the insects, all left the feeding and followed me while I walked my dogs, and then followed me back. But then about 3 months later, I don't know the cycle of the dragonfly, but I was pressure washing my driveway, and a big, fully mature dragonfly came flying around my head, flew through my legs, and I nearly hit it with the pressure wash. So I said, oh, be careful. No, with this. So I turned it off, and it came and landed on my head. And I believe that was the same dragonfly that I cut free from. And that's the connection. Once you realise that connection to nature, then it makes, I think it's part of who we are, that when we understand the life that we share with all life, I think. So, yeah.
Sure.
And, speaking of the indigenous, you're talking about the ancient ones, but all indigenous people have that connection, with nature,
Yeah, and it's funny that we're talking about it in the manner in which you just mentioned it, because for me on my personal journey, that's what started me on this whole thing. It was a mixture of NDEs, and I found the story of Anna Bradenbach, the animal communicator from South Africa, and the Black Panther named Spirit. And that story is what made me realize, like, oh snap, we can telepathically communicate with animals. Oh, snap. We can telepathically communicate with trees. We can communicate with landscapes. And then from there, I'm like, what about the aliens? And then from there, it just like blew up. And then from there, I just basically understood the innate oneness that we all share. We're all fractals of the same source, just broken off into little pieces that look differently to experience their own unique perspectives, to bring the lessons back home. And it's just so awesome once you realize, like, we literally are all one. We're all united. We're all like connected. And it's just beautiful because in a consumerism, materialism type of society, you're thought to think you're just here alone. Once you die, you're separate. Yeah, you're completely separate. You have to go through a third party to get to God. And it's like you have to buy these things to make your life complete. And it's just so disconnected and bass backwards compared to the actual reality that we're all one, we're all united. We can all have these telepathic communications, and the indigenous people are and have always been connected. They've never disconnected. It's the rest of the, Western society that took a detour, and now I feel like the detour is circling back. And I'm so glad to know that there are indigenous people and cultures that are still willing to share their knowledge with us, because that we need that now more than ever.
Yes, and I agree. And I think it's important that we understand the fact that even though the ancient ancestors, indigenous ancestors, are still helping from those higher levels of consciousness. So I think that's important once we understand that. And that's important from the connection that I was invited to a sacred ceremony at the Lakota Reservation in South Dakota.
Wow.
And that's where I met the indigenous ancestor who'd already passed. I didn't know who it was at the time. And he thanked me for attending and said I was very welcome. And then later on, I was able to communicate with him again. And I was invited back to another sacred ceremony. But at that time, the COVID was happening, and we did it by Zoom. But you mentioned the butterflies. At the end of the ceremony, there was a tree planting. And when they planted the tree, all the butterflies came out of the forest and landed on the tree. But our indigenous people are aware of that. They have that contact. They don't talk about it outside of their culture because, for whatever reasons, they don't. But yeah, interesting how the indigenous ancestors have spoken through me, and I'm sure many others as well. It's not just me; they do communicate with us. But interesting how I was again guided to go to that particular conference, and then I was invited again as a speaker at that conference, and then I have a beautiful photograph of this particular indigenous Indian as he showed himself to me. In fact,
really?
I can send it to you if you want it.
Yes, please.
I told the story when I went back to the conference, and the wife of the medicine man he'd passed recently, she said, "Oh, that sounds like Peter." I said, "Well, he didn't give me his name." And she said, "Well, Peter doesn't give his name to anybody." She said, "I'll give you a photograph." She gave me his photograph. She gave me two photographs. And one, he's got a white light around him. That's how I saw him. He'd already passed. And then another one that she had as well. So
wow,
that's why he will speak through me, and they want us to know the information within the Western world, within the materialistic world. We need to understand that because
Well, speaking of the telepathy, there's the telepathy tape. So not only between insects, other life and ET, we are apparently with each other. At least these kids with autism are. And anyways, but apparently this is not coming from telepathy tapes, or maybe the kids did say that it's going to expand and more people are going to become telepathic. But I do hear that message a lot from different sources, I guess. But as far as telepathy, that it's going to be more and more people are going to open up and become telepathic and it's going to be a thing. Like eventually everybody will or something is what I'm understanding anyways. But so, you know, there's children, supposedly a lot of sources say that there's going to be new children coming in, you know, these waves like Dolores Cannon says, and other people say, you know, that I guess seeds or star seeds that are put here. And so more and more children are going to be experiencing things. And so what would you say to a parent whose child is having like similar experiences to yours or any other kind of, you know, supernatural or kind of experiences?
Yeah, I would say encourage it. Listen to what he or she has to say. And there's, because the technologies that we have now, you can do your own research. You can find out all this information about the telepathy states. A prime example of that with Dr. Hennessy Powell. I mean, you can follow that. You can. I think there are different groups now that are encouraging children. I know there's a school in the UK that are teaching children to see mindfully, where they're blindfolded.
Yeah, I think it's called Mindsight.
I mean, that's just, again, a natural human ability that we've lost because we didn't know that we had it, really. So, yeah, I think the children of the future, the star seeds, the children that come in with the knowledge already, they will be the one that will develop the future society as we move towards those golden years for humanity.
Yeah.
And then we can all come back and enjoy it, can't we?
Yes,
absolutely. Yeah, I agree with you in the fact that I think anybody can do these things. It's just we've never been taught how to use that ability. It's like a muscle that you never used before. You know,
exactly.
You have to exercise it.
I could probably give you some tips in how to help. What the problem is with telepathic communication, we doubt the information when we receive it.
Right.
We get the chatter and then think, oh, it's just my imagination. Well, what I used to do, I still do it now actually sometimes. I very often, as I said, I'm walking up 111, 222, 333.
Yeah.
There we are, see. It's common, I think. I'm sure it's common. If you speak about it, more people will speak openly about it. They'll give me information. What I would do, I'd walk into my bathroom and I'd say, look, you just give me all this information telepathically. Can you confirm it's come from you and it's not my imagination, not my own inner chatter? Can you turn that street light out that I can see from my bathroom? The street light goes out immediately. And when you do that, every time you receive telepathic communication, then you understand it because you're getting confirmation by asking the information. So then you believe and that's the key, is believing it. That's the key. Once you believe that you have these telepathic abilities and learn to use them, I can have a conversation with my guides, and I don't doubt it. It's not just my own chatter. I know they give me I was sat by my pool one day, and they give me a download of the quantum unified field theory, which I knew nothing about whatsoever. I said, look, you just give me all this information about the quantum unified field theory. I know nothing about it. Can you show me a craft to confirm it's come from you? And a craft appeared immediately outside my pool cage. I went in to get my wife and said, Sandy, come and witness this craft. It's just appeared. She came outside. We went outside the pool cage to get a better look. And then another one appeared, 3, 4, 5, 7 in total appeared.
Oh, wow.
Violently over our heads, changed direction, and then disappeared sequentially as they had arrived. So on that occasion, I said, okay, I'm happy with that now. And, and another time I was sat by the pool and they gave me a download of the theory of everything. I'd heard about it, but I didn't know anything about it. With an instant understanding. I said, look, you just give me all this telepathic download of information. Can you show me a craft so I know it's come from you? And a craft appeared and flashed 1, 2, 3 times. So I'm happy with that. And you can do that with anything. You can say, you just give me this information. Can you show me a butterfly? I've done that one. And a butterfly flies past. Or can you?
I love that you choose craft.
Right.
Or can you turn the street light on when it's daylight? I've done that as well. And the street light comes on. So there's many. Or can you flicker the lights? And they'll do that. So once you do that and it happens, you think, wow, it's working. And then you learn to do it, then you're confident. It's the self-doubt that stops people from doing it. And within our culture, now we've got the telepathy tapes, we've got evidence that people can do this.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
What do you
telepathy
say to
tapes are
those people? Sorry, Allie, but yeah, they're huge and awesome, and I'm so thankful that they came out and are spreading this awareness for everyone. But
Yeah, absolutely.
I was gonna say, what do you say about the people? I guess they would be like religious people primarily, but who are saying like this is evil and that's you're not, you're messing with like demons and all that kind of stuff. Like I feel like we do struggle probably with still those people in the world, and hopefully when physical contact, as you said, I think you called it, I forgot what you said, but
Open
happens.
contact.
Open contact, yeah. I don't know. I mean, I hope people will realize that everything's okay and they're friendly. I'll just say that word. But
I think what will happen with what happened to my friend, and that's why they gave me that example. Once they see a craft, and the problem is, a lot of our religions teach that there aren't any extraterrestrials, and if there are, the demons. So,
Right.
contradiction, really. But people believe it because they've been taught it. So we have to unlearn that. And people like Chris Bledsoe, I don't know him, I've seen him talk about different things. He has contact with the white lady, who I believe possibly the angelic realm, I don't know per se, but he has a good book out, The UFO of God. And religious people, if they buy that and read that, he looks at it from the religious side of it.
Yeah.
That will help those people who are religious, who have been taught that they are demons.
That's true. I agree. Yes.
That will help. And again, my friend's a prime example, being a total skeptic, to now he believes, he's interested, he talks about it. So I think it's fairly straightforward. And don't forget, they can manipulate space, time, dimension. They understand consciousness. They can give us information telepathically. They can give us downloads to assist us with this transition to a greater reality, to quote Ray and Andy's book.
Very good. Thank you for sharing that. And can you do our audience a favor, please, and let them know where they can find you online? So like drop your links, let them know where they can purchase your book, and then any cool upcoming events or things you have going on.
Well, you can contact me by email, which is kevinjamesbriggs@gmail.com, and I answer all my emails. I have a website with a couple of channels on there, which is Kevin J, just the initial jbriggs.com. I think there's 2 channels on there, some other interviews. I don't put a great deal on there. But if I send you the links that I've got to Ray Hernandez's book, A Greater Reality, there's also a trailer that you can watch in relation to the film when it comes out. I'll send you that.
Right. Sure.
And then I'll send you the Exo-Conscious Humans website as well. And you can share it on your website. So you can have a look at the planetary constitution, the mandated protocol, and there's a channel I did there with Ra, somebody up there, and this latest one will be uploaded, I don't know when. And then one other thing, I've got another friend here, Rebecca Renfrell. She's just written a book, Quantum Windows and Dimensions, a Christian woman's journey of faith and ET contact.
Oh, so that answers Leslie's question.
So that answers Leslie's question, yes. Now, when she's very religious, she's a very good friend of mine, is Rebecca, but she's a lifelong contactee as well. So she writes about it in this book, and I get a mention.
Nice.
Oh, awesome.
Because she met Orton D in 2015, years before I met Rebecca again. And I met Rebecca through Kathleen Marden. And I went down to see Rebecca. She's just recently had this book published. But that's ideal for our religious people, the religious viewers, because it comes from a perspective of a very religious person. So we have to re-educate ourselves to have an understanding that we live in a great, I keep going back to Rena's book, a greater reality. So. So I'll send you all those links, and then if you share them on your website, and then we can get all the information out as much. But anybody who's got any questions, just send me an email, and I'll share anything I've got that I can.
Excellent. Well, I will definitely have all the links of everything that we've mentioned in the video description box. So for the people in our audience, please check that out. We put a lot of work in our video description boxes, and I don't know how many people utilize it, but you need to. Can you tell us a little bit more about this film you have coming up, and then we'll end?
Okay. Yeah, it's not my film. It's the
the film you're going to be in.
Yeah, I'm going to be in it. Yeah, it's Ray Hernandez's film, and it's the same title as the book, A Greater Reality. It's his extraordinary story of contact with our star family, and he's got a large amount of scientists together who are now interestingly retired, so they can speak out about it. And then there's experiences in there. We've recorded 2 channels in there. I don't want to show the whole channel, but one in Miami. I went down to I was asked by Art, quite a few years ago now. So, Kevin, I want you to go down to Miami and speak at a conference. And it was Contact and Contact Research Institute with Ray Hernandez. I didn't know Ray. He didn't know me. I'd only just started speaking out. But this is how they connected. So I contacted him and said, my extraterrestrial staff, I might want me to speak at your conference. Would that be okay? He said, yes, come on down. So I went down to Mountain with Melanie Barton. Melanie did a meditation, and Art channeled through me, and Ra channeled through me, and he described how the reveal would happen. I have that somewhere. It's a really fascinating channel. But interesting again that later on, when they were doing some more filming, they asked me to do another channel at Kathleen Marden's, which I did. And we did some recording at another friend. And it's brought my friends into it in relation to Kathleen Marden, Rebecca Renfro, she's in it. Who else is in it now? Aurora Belcia. She's channeled the Council of 8. She's in it with her artwork. So it brings it full circle round now to this Council of 8 within this film, which is about Ray Hernandez and his contact. But it's interesting how they've guided me to all these different places, meeting all these different people, and vice versa. I've helped them on their journey. They've helped me on my journey. And now it's going to be in this film, and it's all finished. So I'm looking forward to seeing it. They're having a premiere down in Miami when it's ready, so I'm going to go down and watch it. So
ooh, fancy! Well, that sounds cool. Yeah,
I can send you the link. I mean, the leading scientists you'll probably know, and we talked about near-death experiences. Eben Alexander's in there, and I think fascinating, really. So yeah, I'm really looking forward. So I didn't know I'd be in this place when they asked me to speak out about it, but I understand now that there's a story here to be told, and that's all I am, really. I'm a storyteller that's joined the dots together, and it makes for an interesting story.
My name is Reynero Hernandez. I'm a tax attorney. I had zero interest in anything that was paranormal related. And then, holy shit, what the hell just happened? I knew that this was not a dream. This was very, very real. And I needed to find out what happened to me. I set out to interview experiencers, PhD academics and medical doctors that had been researching all of these paranormal experiences.
I'm able to travel outside of my body on the astral plane, and I have done since I was 9 years old.
The first time I had an experience with the beings, I was about 5 years old.
I had a hunch that these orbs were something out of this world.
Would have an out-of-body experience 3 or 4 times a month, and I've learned how to move, fly, walk through walls.
The elements of a near-death experience are separation of consciousness and out-of-body experience.
There were beings, spiritual beings swirling around me and bringing me peace.
I would say my near-death experience in many ways changed me completely.
We are saturated with intelligent life right here and right now.
I see some creatures in the room. The big head, the black eyes, the long fingers.
I was shown things that you just
don't see in this world. When I opened my eyes, there was Katie, this little girl spirit.
For me, all of this is under one rubric. Consciousness includes the physical universe. It includes the cosmos, everything we know about quantum physics and cosmology.
Consciousness is the most fundamental energy of the universe.
We share a collective consciousness.
I think that the brain is a projection of consciousness.
Everything ultimately evolves to the soul itself. This is just the physical container.
And it's only by bringing all these pieces together, both finding their commonalities and how they can each inform each other, that we can then see the big picture.
I set out on a quest to find out what happened to me. Began to realize that there are literally people all over the world having very similar experiences. Is there life after death? Do we live in a simulated reality? Is it possible that all of these paranormal experiences are somehow interrelated?
It's as if it was trying to tell us something. All these are related. Now it's up to you to figure out how.
You truly went with the flow of everything going on.
Yeah,
I think that's it's fun to do that. So, and thank you for doing that.
I use that. I go with the flow. If they ask me to do something, as long as it's legal, I'll try and put it there.
That's what her motto literally is: grow with the flow.
Grow with the flow.
And I would like to give a shout out to Ort and Dee for guiding Kevin this whole time. I think it's really funny they threw shade at him when he was a little kid in the bathtub. Are you sure this is him? I think that's really and I just think it's cool that like other people have met and channeled them also. Yeah. So they're like, you're not the only one that they're visiting and giving information to. So like that's really wild also. And I'm just really grateful that you're willing to come on our show and share all this information with us. I want to thank you so much.
Yeah, I've enjoyed this conversation for sure. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah. So thank you, Justin. Thank you, Leslie. Thank you, Kevin. Is there any last things you'd like to say before we close out for today?
No, just thank you for helping me share my story. Your work is very important because without people like yourselves, we cannot get that information out there. So thank you.
You're very welcome. All right. Thank you guys so much for sticking around. And for our audience, please do us a favor and smash that like button, click subscribe, ring our little notification bell, drop a lovely comment down below, and share this video with your family and friends to help us spread the good word. All right, Kevin, we do a 3-piece hand gesture closure. I'll demonstrate it for you. And then if you're willing to join, awesome. If you don't want to, that's cool too. We do much love, peace, and namaste. Are you down to join?
Yep.
All right, here we go. Much love.
Love everybody.
There you go. Peace. Oh, we got hearts.
We got hearts.
Namaste.
Namaste.
Namaste.